order is to call the meeting to order. We'll note that roll call has been established. Mr. Grossman has been excused for tonight, and an establishment of a quorum is now recognized. We'll stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, and just to restart again, welcome Mr. Grundy to our board this evening for your first official session. I'm glad to have you part of our group. Before we get into the election of officers, you'll notice that Mr. Grossman's not here, and he reached out to me this morning, and I was in conversations with Mr. Martinson as well, and looking at his excuse absent for tonight. And there was a request. He is dealing with a family matter. Maybe many of you know his mother is ailing, and some end of life is near, unfortunately, and he cannot be here tonight. But he had a request, if the board would so choose, with the election of officers, if that potentially could be tabled until our next session. Him being wanting to participate in that, he understands that he's just one voice. And I shared that I would bring that forward for the board to consider, tabling the officer election until our May meeting. By statute, it's within the board's ability to do that. You have 30 days from today to complete the election of officers. So I'll put that out there for the board to consider. He apologizes for not being part of it. Is there any?
I mean, if it doesn't hurt anything, I say we wait for him.
I agree.
That's my personal opinion.
I'd be opposed to it. I don't see the point of it. I mean, if he was that dead set on it, he could tune into Zoom. I mean, we've been doing that for 2-3 years now.
Yeah.
I mean,
I did offer that, John, just as a point as well, and he felt that he wouldn't be, not knowing the circumstances, that he wouldn't have been able to do that. So that was offered to him. And again, this is the board discretion. I'm just bringing it forward. So if there is consideration, I would assume there would need to be made an motion in a second, and then we would look for acknowledgement. If it's supported, okay, and if it's not, well then we would move forward with our regular meeting.
I'll make up the motion to table it till he returns.
Okay.
I'll second it.
All right, motion made and second to postpone the election of officers until the May 13th meeting.
So are we within the, because I did look up, you have to have a board president.
Mhm.
Like, you can't just take turns, right, under state statute, like we have, and what, you said we're within the time frame. What is
We have
that?
30 days to assign officer positions
Okay.
within that. So
30 days from the election?
from today. Our new board members are seated by today. New officers are seated within 30 days of today. So I would, as far as practicality, Mr. Martinson assisting and leading us through within that role. Katie potentially assisting and leading us through with the minutes and documentation, and then we would acknowledge that officer election position at the beginning of our agenda in May. So why don't we just do, did I give you a form for a roll call vote?
I have a
then?
call.
Yep. Okay,
So,
all right.
first was Mandy, second Molly, we'll do a roll call vote. Unless there's further discussion.
Yeah, any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, we'll go with the roll call.
Okay, John Heidemann,
no.
Chris Martinson,
I'm going to abstain because I'm assuming the reason for this is that Mark has a different idea of things than I do, and I don't want to tip the balance either way, so I'm going to abstain.
okay, Holly Schweitzer,
I'm a yes.
Andy Wills.
Yes.
Katie Batten. I am a yes, I guess. Nate Grundy.
No.
All right, it was 3-2, so that would pass then. So from the action there, we would move our election of officers to the May 13th meeting.
Just for, because a lot of things happen in early May, it would be my suggestion that the board appoint a temporary temporary officers or carry over, or whatever the board wants to do, until that meeting, because there are things that'll happen in between that have to do with.
Can we
Absolutely.
just carry over?
I'll make a motion to carry over.
I second that.
Okay, motion made and second to continue on with the existing officer
Or
slate.
prior offices.
Any further discussion?
So first Katie, second Mandy.
Correct.
Okay, roll call vote. Nate Grundy,
Yes.
John Hageman.
Yes.
Chris Martenson,
Yes.
Holly Schweitzer,
Yes.
Mandy Rose.
Yes.
Katie Bannon, yes.
Okay, Chris, I'm gonna turn it back over to you to take us through the consent
Okay.
agenda and the remainder of our agenda then.
Right, so we are,
Consent.
into the consent agenda. The consent agenda only consists of approval of employment of personnel. And I'm open to a motion on that, or to put that into the closed meeting. Any,
I think there's some discussion on there that it should be in closed session.
so on this, if only one board member objects, it automatically goes into closed session, so we will not.
Okay, so no
Pass
consent
it.
agenda.
No consent agenda, okay. There is no unfinished business, so we'll move to new business, which is to review of revised policies, administrative guidelines. And you have in your packet all the ones where there is no suggestion of change, as well as a few where there is a change suggestion. We'll begin that with a motion to adopt, if anybody is willing to make that motion, and then we'll open up discussion after the motion.
I'll make that motion.
Moved by Holly,
I'll second.
seconded by Mandy. We're open for discussion on these. Any discussion, questions, issues on any of the proposed changes or the proposed non-changes? And for Nate's sake, I'll tell you what, the way the procedure works. We cannot adopt these tonight.
Correct.
So, actually, that motion is gonna be automatically tabled to the
I was gonna
next.
say, what did we, okay,
Yeah, we can,
I wasn't understanding.
we can automatically table that, and if there's,
Discussion.
It's just
Yeah,
discussion.
so
but we
this
can,
is-
we can have discussion, and if there's any issues, bring them out. If the ones that are not requested for change have no objections, those will remain and those will not come back to us, but any of these changes will come back to us the next meeting. So, any issues in any of those changes? Or any of the non-changes?
I actually have a question. Are you gonna go through them? Or not, probably not. Otherwise, I jumped to page 59.
Okay.
Was a question that I had. Not questioning it, just wondering, what is our actual policy? Granted, we haven't had a good snowmobiling season in a long time. What is our policy as it relates to UTVs and snowmobiles?
So you'll notice on there that ATV, UTVs were added for the fact that it's road accessible now. And then once they would get to our property, they would park in a designated parking area, just as if they had driven a truck or car, to school. Snowmobiles,
Probably
know-
not the best idea, I was gonna say.
Well,
to bring them
unless-
into the parking lot.
right, unless there is a trail access or a trailhead that would allow legal authorization to be into the student parking lot, probably not the best idea, of traveling down roads or whatnot. I'm not familiar with the roads around the area, if they are accessible routes to the trailheads. But that's on the driver of the device, if you will, or the vehicle to know if it's appropriate or not.
Gotcha, just didn't want to be
I just-
promoted as a good
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's no trailhead that I'm aware of. I know just out on W it crosses there, but access to town I'm not familiar with.
Parking lot issue is also
What's that?
related, the parking lot is also the, issue where snowmobile access has been a thing. The city actually controls the access for snowmobiles and for their from being in the parking lot. even though we share the parking lot.
They
that has
do
been an issue.
prohibit it?
Hmm?
You said they do prohibit it?
They prohibit everything for snowmobiles.
And I'm assuming ATV, UTV still pay parking?
If it would, they would, yes, if it's
Okay.
somebody who's bringing a vehicle in on a regular basis, that they would need to
I know all the
acknowledge.
London roads are ATV, UTV routes, but that's not the case for some.
I believe they are, unless it's a numbered highway. If it's a lettered highway, then, or, excuse me, a numbered highway, you can't take a ATV or UTV down. But if it's a lettered or a lettered road or county road, you can drive them on. So,
I would assume it'd be kinda like we do the driver tractor to school day, didn't we have a driver snowmobile day too in the winter?
I think we did. It hasn't come up because we've had such terrible winters the
Right.
last.
And then the accessibility to get here, right?
Yeah, I don't know on the accessibility part because, the laws changed on some of that as far as road use and the sides of roads. Some of that opened up, more access.
Sure.
But it hasn't been an issue because we haven't had good winters.
Right, more than a couple of days. Okay.
Can we look at page 18 for the immunization requirements? Can we just go over this briefly?
Sure.
Because the way I'm reading it, nobody needs any vaccines anymore.
All right,
Is
so-
that correct?
No, the 18, it still acknowledges the vaccination or immunization records there. The green and yellow struck through graph is recommended to come out because that graph changes almost annually.
Okay.
All right, and so by just referencing state statute 25204, our Pupil Services Office, Gen Penn, our school nurse, that's their responsibility to ensure whatever the state statutes, how they're updated, that we're meeting that. So this typically then, it could be every year that we're updating this
Okay.
on there. So just by simply stating state statute, that would eliminate us to, like right now, this is probably wrong.
Okay.
Because it changes so frequently. Is that right, Mrs.?
Yeah, we just don't have to
Yeah.
update our policy.
Correct.
Okay,
Because
As long as we acknowledge the state statute.
gotcha.
Yep,
Thank you.
you're welcome. And as Chris had mentioned, the items that are referenced as changes overwhelmingly, it's the grammatical changes or clarifying throughout the remainder of the policies, more so in the guidelines than the actual policies themselves. And we'll bring this back at the May meeting for
Yes.
formal approval.
We'll bring back only the ones that are changes. The
Mhm.
ones that have no changes will go down as reviewed. So, the next thing on the agenda is preliminary review of base wage increase for the 2024-25 school year, or I should say fiscal year, beginning July 1st. And Mr. Marquardt and Mr. Black will
Sure.
take us through that.
So this evening, just to recap some items that have been brought forward through our compensation committee that has met twice now addressing this topic. Included within your topic summary are items that kind of broadcast out where we were from a state level and into our local level, and how the consumer price index has evolved for this next year during 24-25. That's at 4.12%. Noting that the state biennium budget has been established to support school funding over this next fiscal year for the district. We know our additional revenues that will be brought forward to support that, as well as conversations as to other levers, if you will, within our budget, which were discussed to support looking at the potential support of that 412 within. You'll note within the various workforce groups of the certified staff, our support groups, our support staff, para group, and our administrative staff, with the anticipated acknowledgement of what that would mean should the board move forward. So with that, are there any specific questions, or Mr. Marquardt, is there any additional items from your lenses, our discussion that we'd like to talk about?
No, we tried to capture as much of the discussion from our committee meetings into a format to explain to the board, and also try to, the topic summary looks similar to how we've structured them in the past, so we're not jumping all over the place, and how we try to explain it to you as board members. I think the key component that Mr. Black just shared is that our budget is able to support the recommendations due to, in large part, a big reason last year from the district moving to 10,000 to 11,000 per pupil, and then an additional $325 per student next year. When I highlighted the vouchers at the last meeting, I shared that we would be debt-free moving forward into our next fiscal year. And then there's just, the board has really worked on sustainable practices for purchasing. We didn't put ourselves in holes with putting lots of staff members into ESSER funding. We really tried to target areas with ESSER dollars to make sure we didn't create, a fiscal cliff on the long run. That's all I would have to add. We can definitely expand if there's other questions that you might have.
I have a question. The CPI, is that CPI or CPIU? From what I understand, there's a difference, right?
CPI is what I'm knowledgeable of, or what it's referenced as.
So, yes,
Isn't there like an urban CPI and then rural?
Two
Yeah,
numbers
was for-
differentiate, I believe, the one takes out energy in the equation.
Yeah.
If you look them up, what the actual running CPI numbers mean, I believe the CPIU that you reference, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe that one takes energy into the equation, and CPI only, it is, the rest are without energy in the equation.
what we've tried to do is use the Wisconsin Employment Relations Commission's metric for CPI. That's what public school districts have been using as a guideline post-Act 10. And they publish the percentage, so that way we're not picking numbers that may or may not support what we're trying to do. We just say school districts are using a CPI that's published by WERC, Wisconsin Employment Relations Committee, and WASB, Wisconsin Association of School Boards, has that on their site too, and that's what we've tried to use for a metric when saying CPI, because as you mentioned, CPI can be looked at differently depending on where you pull it from.
The source and where it's being generated could look
When I
different.
was researching, I
Yeah.
couldn't tell the difference.
Mhm.
Okay.
I'm not a part of the committee, so I don't know this, but if you talk, can you talk to me about, like, the budget impact was 625, but then plus fringe benefits, so you're counting on at least an 8% increase at the bottom summary, or would that be like the most?
No, if the board approves, I'll stand up here just in case the mic's not picking up. If the board approves the recommendations at their next meeting, it would be $625,000 plus fringe benefits. The main drivers of fringe benefits are FICA, so 7.65% of earnings, and most of our staff is in the Wisconsin retirement system, which this current year is 6.9% of wages. It could drop or go up as of January 1st. Staff either has to be grandfathered into the WRS or work more than 880 hours a year. So not every employee qualifies for WRS, so I would use a metric of about $90,000 as if we're looking for the estimated amount. Does that make sense? So $625,000.
So it's 625 plus another 90, you said?
Yes.
Okay,
So
and then what
between-
about health insurance?
So yes, good question. We talked about health insurance. Our renewal is January 1st for health insurance. In our last committee meeting, we shared that throughout the summer, we are going to stay committed to the 8% that is in budget. And when January 1st comes, and if there's an insurance plan design change that is presented to fit within that parameter, that's what we will do. And just like last year, there will be plans for our staff to select from, and the message that we shared at the committee is that's what our budget is. We're not going to say if the insurance is a 20% renewal, that's what's going to be asked for the budget to support. We're going to stick to that amount. This year with our budget, it goes from July 1st to June 30th, but our insurance goes from January to December, so we're already going to be 6 months into our existing rates that we have. Does that make sense?
So then
Yeah.
we have to forecast the next 6 months.
Yes.
and have it
So
done
you
then.
think 625 plus 90, and then that's the total budget impact? Well,
You know, every year there's different changes in the budgets. People leave, resign, retire. That's using data that we know today.
So last year there was $1,000 per pupil increase. Is there any of that left over from the last CPI increase to roll into this?
Yes, so once it went from 10,000 to 11,000, the board has that amount to use again in future budgets, plus an additional $325 on top of that in next year's budget, if the board chooses to do so. Our recommendation is to always take that lever when the state provides it to you, so you, especially as a low spending school district, if you get behind, as we've explained that we feel we are, then you further fall behind if you don't take that option. Does that make sense? So yes, you do have the $1,000 that was part of it. A lot of that was allocated into this year's budget. Some of it was for wages, some of it was for
Okay,
special
so I was trying to
projects.
understand, so it's not all for the
Yes.
CPI increase for the staff? Correct.
I think a good
So
chunk of
then,
it was though.
is the 325 this year enough to cover this? What is it?
So
625K plus 90K?
with other levers though, because right now, being debt
So
free.
not in itself.
Yep, that is an expenditure reduction, which allows a free up of funds. We also have targeted projects, like this year was the one-time project to spend for the big pod replacement that's going on at the high school. We wouldn't see that as being an ongoing expense inside our budget. The board made a decision to not purchase 5 units of buses, which we targeted as our budget parameter, so 1 unit was purchased. So that's where, when I put on the second page of the board as tries to, is sustainability in mind, we feel like, you know, the board has set the budget up to be sustainable as well. A lot of purchases that were made from ESSER have helped the district as well, try to, you know, target areas that,
Now you don't have to spend on?
yes.
Okay.
So there was devices that were bought. A lot of the classrooms were updated with the whiteboards or the smart boards that you see behind you, interactive board. So I think good financial decisions by the board allows you to consider this recommendation.
Joe, I'm a little bit concerned about the sustainability of 1 bus a year, because, you know, if we're switching to a larger number of years maintenance, is that eventually gonna be to where we can't just buy 1 bus? And is that gonna catch up to us, and we better think about that before we head down that road and plan on it for future years?
With our last facilities committee meeting, we are trying to focus in on what the right purchasing cycle is. Is it going to be after a number of years? I felt like our latest discussion at facilities was having a mileage benchmark, possibly 100,000 miles per bus. And then, you know, my hope is that the budget will include capital purchasing of buses in the future, more than 1, because I see how that has helped our sustainability of bus purchasing. We've gone through a lot of cycles of purchasing in my time here, and I feel like right now we're at a good spot of where we haven't fallen behind, where we're like, okay, how do we find the money to do this? So fast forward past 24, 25, I reinserted the budget purchases for buses in there, hoping that the board would accommodate that, but again, you know, you would have the final say in that.
So it could, you're saying it could affect our future, so,
Well, not next year's budget, because the board has already approved only one bus. They take so long to get, let's say that you approved another bus right now, I don't think we would have it by the time our 24-25 fiscal year would be done. Because we would have to go through the bidding process of getting new quotes, and by the time that would happen and then present it to the committee and the board, we wouldn't be able to do that. So it would be more for the 25-26 budget.
Just some thoughts to chew on. So the 325, the additional 325 in the budget that supposedly we're gonna be continually getting, unless it goes away in pending lawsuit,
Is
which,
that part of the levy?
that is part of the levy.
Okay.
So that totals up currently around three-quarters of $1 million, give or take, you know, without splitting hairs. The .08 rise in insurance on our normal cost, our $3 million about cost that we have right now is around $250,000, $250,000. The potential raise in insurance, if we do nothing, and granted, these are just numbers that our consultant threw at us in last year's meetings, the raise they're talking is around $1.75 million. So those are numbers I think we need to take into consideration before we make any actions.
What was the $1.75 million? What was that?
That's what the consultant told us what to expect as far as insurance premiums going up because of our usage of insurance. If we change nothing in the plan,
But
which,
then, Joe, you kind of said you were setting at 8% and that's the max.
no, 8, which
So-
is $250,000.
Yeah, so mathematically, let's say that we have an 8% renewal on $3 million, that's $240,000. Half of that would be for the second half of our budget year, because it's only 6 months of our budget. So it wouldn't be 8% of, a higher amount. Throughout all the insurances changes I've seen over the past 10 years, the board has always made it work where we don't exceed budget expenditures. We get the data that we have, we tell staff, expect plan design changes when utilization is high, and that's what we would do again. And I totally understand the insurance, we've talked about a lot at the committee level, with our utilization running at 140%, definitely a scary amount, but it's just part of insurance life. There have been years where we've had 0% increase in insurance, and the budget has been able to support, additional expenditures because of that. And now, when it has, 8%, we allocate that appropriately, and we tell staff, hey, if your deductible changes from $2,000 to $3,000, just use it as an example, that's just part of what we need to do to sustain our budget. And I think that happens at a lot of places of business, public or private. Insurance changes are just part of working somewhere.
I'm still hung up on the bus thing. I realize that it takes a long time for them to come, but it sounds like eventually that money that we're saving by only buying one bus this year, and if it's one bus next year, we've got to recapture that money somehow. And if we've given used it for permanent changes, there's only so many places we can get revenue. And where is that gonna be? Or have you thought that far ahead?
So our annual budget development includes all variables. What I would say is if we were talking about the 25-26 budget, we would want to reintroduce purchasing into the budget. We have continued to tell our building leaders that with our declining enrollment, staffing attrition is going to happen. This year, we've already told our principals
that there is no new hires. You need to make it work with what you have in your buildings. And when we have retirements, our biggest question to our principals is, do you need this position? And if the answer is no, we don't replace the position. And that happens every year inside our budget. We don't say we're zero-based budgeting, but we ask for justification of, okay, is this position needed? How does it support students? Can we go without this position? Are there fewer hours that we can have for support staff? We do the same thing next year. I don't want to say this because it hasn't officially happened yet, but I look at our transportation routes. We know we have fewer students on a bus. We're looking to eliminate that bus route next year if we're able to accommodate and not disrupt our transportation. You know, we look at our responsibility is to not just say just because we've spent it in an existing budget that, well, yeah, you're gonna spend it no matter what in future budgets. So I know that it's hard to see, okay, we pull a lever where you're looking at over $700,000 of an increase. How will that impact our sustainability in the long run? It's a very fair question when you look at the size and scope of our budget. Personnel is the largest percentage when you look at wages and benefits. We look at forecasting, you know, into a budget year. We don't want to be standing here in October and saying, well, our recommendation was poor and we are now deficit spending and we would like you to approve that budget. We don't feel like that would be a good exercise and responsibility from our lens as leaders of the district. So I feel like we're giving you the information for next year. We are asking that we hope that we can include our buses in future budgets. If it ends up being 100,000 miles, we still likely will be able to support a year past next. It just depends on how we cycle buses through the route assignments. We could potentially take a lower mileage bus and put it where a higher mileage bus is and try to buy some time. You know, each year when they send me the mileage report at the end of the year, we look at where the mileage is at of each of those buses and we can see how much is put on a bus each calendar year and determine if there are buses that need to be moved. We know that our drivers like to have, you know, their bus, and we want it to be their bus because they feel like they can take care of it then, but at times we just need to make good business operational changes.
Are there any other questions?
I'm just curious, do you foresee like Robin Health dropping us because they've lost so much money in 2 years?
I don't have a crystal ball, but I would be surprised because if they drop us, they
Can't recoup any of it.
well, they can't recoup any of the funds. So it would be in their interest to try and secure business if it makes sense, but we will ask for a bid if they don't give us one, or I mean, the board, you don't like it, you don't have to accept it. There are self-funding models that we look at. We talk a lot about health insurance. We brief the committee. We pull up a slide of where the utilization is at. We know that that's a big part of our budget. We can look at $3 million. We need to have a good health plan for staff so they feel like it supports them. But for Robin to say, well, we're just gonna cut our losses, I think they're hoping that the utilization drops down because a lot of the claims are due to what I would call, you know, not regular operations of our plan. We don't want them to be regular operations, but sometimes it just happens.
I was kind of curious on, what Brenda had brought up about, like, they set an amount and then you wait to see, like, have we ever done anything like that? Like, 'cause there's so many unknowns, like, you set an amount and then you see, maybe we can do more pending the health insurance, like, have we ever done anything like that?
Not
Well-
not that I'm aware of.
We did it last year, but that was just with the biennium budget where we
Yeah,
gave a
Right.
little bit
yes.
and then the rest.
Yes,
Right.
I was more, talking about, like, 'cause insurance seems like such an unknown and a humongous expense, like, if that made sense.
You know, typically that wouldn't be recognized. I don't know if you remember back in our approach of authorizing it, that November timeframe is when we're bringing along our, what our rates are. So for that January 1
And I didn't mean
renewal.
kicking the whole thing down the road, but like
Mhm.
maybe we'll be in better shape than we thought, or, you know,
Mhm.
vice versa.
Sure.
Joe, you were going to bring back our consultant to the compensation meeting soon, and she may have, even though she won't have hard numbers, she may have some projections for us, right?
I don't think we will have our renewal until end of August, early September at best case scenario. You wanna make sure that you, when you do a bid out process for insurance, that you don't go too early, where if your utilization drops, that you don't see the benefits of that. If you go too late and vice versa, the utilization goes up, you know, is it really gonna hurt us now when our utilization is already high? My feeling with insurance, and I know everybody has a different view on this depending on how you look at budgeting. I really like that we have a January renewal, because it gives, you're not tying the two to a budget as absolutes. If you're renewing your insurance for July 1st, actually we used to have, I think it was August 1st, it just presents some uncertainty because you don't have your pupil counts yet, you don't have your final revenue limit, where after we get to our actual change of insurance, we know what our budget is for the year, and we're able to say, well, this is exactly what we need insurance to do to make sure that it fits within the budget parameters. And the one thing that the board has done that has, I think, been a positive not only for the budget but for staff, is they have a choice. You can decide which one of the plans you want to be in. So we have a broad plan and a focus plan with 2 plans inside of each of those plans, but the board has made a base plan where this is what the board will pay. You wanna buy up to the broad plan, or you don't wanna be in the high deductible plan, you gotta pay more. That's what you have to do. So that way I feel like those additional costs that some individuals might incur, that was their choice, not a option for the board to say, well, we'll pay a little bit more for said plan. It's like this year, this is the base plan. You wanna buy up to broad, you have to do it. If you wanna stay on a traditional deductible plan, okay, you're even gonna pay more than that. And we hear that from staff. They don't love that they maybe aren't getting the option that some of their colleagues have, but again, can't be the best for everybody. We give you plans that we feel like are sustainable for your family, or if you're single, and that's what we'll do. And I see that continuing to happen because every entity is doing that with insurance, because if you just close your eyes and hope for the best, it won't happen. You're gonna be paying more, and then you're gonna have a cliff of challenges with insurance. And I know that when utilization is high, it's really, if we didn't have a benchmark to sit at, so that's why, I remember last year at the budget meeting, we had a community member ask, well, why do you always budget 8%? Have you ever hit that? And we said, well, it's good practice to have that number there. It's a recommendation from our consultant, and the reason why we put it there is exactly for reasons like this, where it's likely to have a higher renewal, and then we respond appropriately, and that's just good budget mechanics.
So when does the decision for the insurance changes need to be made by?
We will likely be in September at some point.
September.
Could be as late as the first meeting in October. It sometimes depends on the timing of our meetings, where, you know how it works in the second and fourth Mondays. Sometimes the balance of when we get that information and the timing of when we're able to meet with total compensation committee as well. But usually it's at the earliest, the second meeting in September or the first meeting in October to decide what it looks like, because then we use the month of November as our open enrollment timeline, and then December we send the information to the company, and then January is when it starts.
And then when do we need to make a decision on the pay increase?
Typically, we like to do it by our next meeting at the latest if the board wishes to do so, and we do that because when we issue individual contracts to our teaching staff, we let them know what their rate of pay will be in that contract that they're considering to sign for the next school year. And then when we send letters of intent to our support staff, we let them know what a wage increase looks like as well. So there's, as much certainty as it can be for their consideration. We know that that's, not always perfect, but that helps, with the number in there.
May 15th is that date typically.
May
when-
15th.
Yeah, they have
Try to see if the
acknowledgement.
lines up right to make any decisions easy, does it? Hard to forecast what you don't know.
Yeah, and while it's something that we've been able to do in the past, it isn't universal. There's districts last year that didn't make a decision until after July 1st, And of course, we made the decision, the final decision, when was it?
After the budget was
August.
authorized there.
It was in August or something
Yeah.
like that, yes. So there's nothing set in stone, but Joe is asking us to try to get something for next meeting if we can, so. Any other questions, or are we ready to move the agenda to the next item? Hearing none, thank you, Joe, thank you, Scott. The next item is the preliminary review of 24-25 school fees.
So board members included for your review, over the past couple of years, the district has taken multiple approaches to school fees. This last year, we reestablished a significant amount of fees to become part of our annual budget development as we look forward. Throughout there's nothing necessarily new to the offerings that might be there. This is just for a reflection and discussion tonight, and if there are items of interest for further discussion, we can carry that out. The one notable on I believe the page 88 is looking at our proposed 2024-25 rate sheet for our food service program, which is acknowledged within approximately that 5-cent increase throughout for the noted line items that are there. This is something that we would look for potential approval potentially at our next meeting if the board felt that it would be appropriate to move forward. So are there any areas or items of school fees? I know we've had lengthy discussions in the past as to what might be appropriate and or not, and I think from a standpoint of where we landed this year, we landed in a quality spot to meet the needs, but yet still do our very best to make the best decisions and be economical for our students and families when appropriate, when it's our responsibility to support a free and appropriate education for our students.
I know you made some notes in here about it's obviously dependent on enrollment declining, why there's fewer or less revenue. Can you remind me how many fewer you're projecting for next year as far as our total enrollment?
Like the number of
Yeah,
students
like the chart, like,
district-wide?
yeah, we were at 21 or,
Yes. So the complicated component of student enrollment is your revenue limit is on a 3-year average.
yeah.
Yep.
Plus your summer school 3-year average. However, when we look at how it impacts our direct annual number, regardless of all of the formula
right.
components, we're
That's more what I
graduating
meant.
175, bringing in 125 approximately. So you're losing 50 students a year, but then there are some years where we don't lose that many students, or some years where we lose more. We've had a loss of 80 students. Next year, I would say we're gonna definitely be around that 50 to 75 metric. But remember, your revenue limit is based upon 3-year averages. So, and they don't take the revenue away from you either right away. They start taking away in thirds. So yes, super complicated, but the answer to your question is yes, we go down in enrollment. And one other component of our budget is as our free and reduced numbers
go up a smidge. They have done that the last few years. That's fewer fees that you see from those students because they can potentially have them waived.
Have we gone down in enrollment the past 3 years, every year?
Mhm.
The year that we were not quite down as much as was the year after COVID. We lost some students during the COVID cycle, and then when the enrollment came back, there was, I would say, a smaller reduction in students. You know, statewide, school districts are losing
Yeah,
students.
typically most rural school communities are in a declining enrollment trend. There's just fewer kids, within. That's why we work hard to try to attract and retain, to the students that are living in our communities, that this is their destination, that they should be here, so.
The birth rate's just down too, like I was talking with a neighbor in Kimberly, and they're closing the 4K center and absorbing it into the elementaries in Kimberly because the enrollment's just down. It's purely birth rate for four-year-olds.
My question for you, Scott and Joe, is there any reason why we should carry this over? It doesn't sound like anything's controversial on here. Would you, and there's nothing that says we couldn't pass it tonight if everybody's happy with it, and,
I guess that's the board's discretion if he wants to. move
I'll
that-
make a
move on.
motion to pass it tonight.
I'll second.
moved by Mandy, seconded by John. Any other discussion? We'll have, because it involves money, we'll have a roll call vote.
Okay, first Mandy, second John.
Yep.
Chris Martenson,
Yes.
Holly Schweitzer,
Yes.
Mandy Wills.
Yes.
Katie Batten, I'm a yes. Mark's not here. Nate Grundy,
Yes.
John Heidemann.
Yes.
The next item is the food service contract with Chartwell's, the food service management company, and
Mhm.
Mr.
If I can
Buck
start
and
the
Mr.
conversation, our facilities committee met to review the bids that came forward for consideration. This evening, we'd like to bring forward a continuation, a motion to approve Chartwell's as our food service provider company to support all of our breakfast and lunch and support services around food service. Mr. Marquardt?
If you're not aware, the RFP process to secure food service management company is prescribed. We have a process that we are required to follow. I hope I was able to kind of share that generalization in the topic summary that is there. We create and solicit proposals, but the template for that document that is sent out and posted is the same for all school districts who have a food service management company. The uniqueness to creating the RFP is you're putting in data that is unique to your school district, so your number of sites, your meal charges, how you offer the food. It includes the wages of your staff that is there within the existing food service management company or any staff members that you have that are employees of the school district. That is all sent out, and then the rubric that is on the second page, or evaluation matrix is probably a better term for that, is people have the categories, your district signs the points, however, your number one criteria has to be the cost, and
Thank you.
that's how we presented it to our committee. We assigned points after discussion that was there, and the cost financial proposal that is in there, which is the first one, that is automatically calculated within the rubric. So when it says 21.46, 20.63, and 25, we didn't come up with that number as a committee. That was populated through the number that we entered into the matrix, and therefore it gave us a calculation. At our committee level, we took each of the categories and talked about them and what we saw in the binders that we received from each, where we were able to say, okay, when we look at transparency of reporting and rebates, discounts, guarantees to the account, experiences, references, on-site manager, financial condition. We took that meeting and said, okay, this is what it looks like, this is what we see. Do you have any questions? I think we talked to 13 school districts to get good reference information from all of the proposals. So there was 3 of them that you can see. And really to summarize the conversation that we had at our committee level was, okay, we feel like Chartwell's is still the best recommendation to have the board consider moving forward. We feel like it's, their company is putting us in a position to offer the food service options that we want for our students. I don't have anything else to add unless you want to have us go through additional questions. Janelle is here tonight from Chartwell's as well. She's one of the area district managers, and she was here through our walkthrough, is knowledgeable of the proposal. If there's something that I'm not able to answer, we could share more on. The one thing that I really appreciate about our existing operation is the continuous improvement mindset of our director, Monica, we've seen come to the meetings. Her and I meet monthly, and we have a list of 5 things that we talk about every time. And she takes that list, has it in her binder, so she has a historical representation of what we talk about each meeting. And then she wants to take that feedback and go back and figure out, what does this look like moving forward through the year? Are there things that can be changed? Are there things that maybe cannot be changed right now, but can definitely be a targeted approach in the following year or following month? And I appreciate that about her, because it would be very easy to just say, well, we can't do that because of our existing budget, or we can't do that because of nutritional guidelines, or we can't do that because my supervisors won't let me do that. She doesn't say that. She wants to have good conversations about how to grow the program. I talked to some students, and it's just like our committee shared. One student said, I would love to eat mashed potatoes and gravy and chicken bowls every day. The other student said, I don't like that. Don't serve that. And it's like, okay, you get 2 different answers. But that's why you get choices for kids. You know, I realize at the elementary level the choices are not quite as advanced as you might get at the high school. One goal that she has for next year is to really figure out how to create a few more choice options for the middle school as well. And I think she's seen some successes of the student voting, where they're, I think she calls it student choice, but she has some options. Kids get to vote. Whatever wins, that's served later on in the month. And the kids like that, that helps get kids interested in food service. And, you know, if they know I don't remember what it was called, the chicken option. Do you remember what it was called?
The mom's mashed potato bowl?
No, there was like a chicken, Southwest chicken.
Oh, Nashville hot?
Something like that,
Yep.
yeah. All the kids wanted it because I think they thought it was Chick-fil-A. So I think when you do stuff like that, it's doing a service to our students, and that, I think, is what matters, because that's who we're feeding. We're feeding students.
I
They're not all
always
just-
appreciate her updates.
They're not all just voting for pizza and ranch then?
I do think many of them would that's all they need on the menu.
You're right.
And Joe, refresh my memory. She's Monica will stay, right?
Yes.
Okay.
How many years have we been with Chartwell's now?
We're ending our 5th year.
I was on the board when we decided to change and go with them. And there were some big promises made. And I for one, I'm not satisfied with the history that what we've had. I don't like false advertising. While I was down at the WASB convention this year, I listened to your sales staff down there presenting and giving out free samples. And it was stated that these are regularly served on all our school lunches. I took a picture of them, I sent them to my son. He would vehemently disagree with that statement. Understand there's some things that are working really well. The bookwork works really well, and things have been improving this last year greatly. I'm just a little miffed about some of the history of promises made and the way things went. Some of that I understand was COVID related, but I'm kind of negative.
Really?
Just throwing it out there.
I really like Monica's updates, cause it sounds like she actually reports on like what works and what doesn't, and I always appreciate
Yeah.
that part, like she seems really enthusiastic about trying new things. So I don't know if you can speak to any of the, like, she mentioned the grab and go salads are working really well, like, I mean,
Mhm.
is that something we're still doing? My kids pack a lunch, so I'm terrible at firsthand knowledge.
My daughter does, but she loves salads, but
I-
they just don't serve the salad she likes, so.
Well,
she
and my
brings her
son
home terrible
always
salads.
did cold lunch, and he absolutely refuses cold lunch. Now, he has to eat the lunches at the school, just loves them. If I packed him a cold lunch, the food would rot in there. Which I packed good stuff too.
Oh,
So Joe, on this matrix, there's the guaranteed to food service account, guarantees the food service account, that Chartwell's only got a 1, but the other one scored higher. What is that?
So inside each of their proposals, they can say that if you do not achieve a certain financial component, which is usually profit, that we will guarantee that we will pay you up to that amount. So for example, I believe Tahers, I didn't have the proposal right in front of me, they guaranteed $50,000. I think Aramark guaranteed about 40 something, and Chartwell's is right around 10 or 11,000. It's in the binder if I need that number. But what we looked at there is, okay, the other components of the bid are they trying to buy the business? Because they're saying, hey, we're gonna give you this no matter what. When I asked Chartwell's leadership about that, they just mentioned, hey, we're giving you the number that we feel we can best guarantee. If the program achieves better results, you still receive that anyway. So if, let's say that the profit is $20,000 instead of 10, we don't give them an additional 10. It still stays within our food service account. It's just a smaller rating scale item on the matrix if you're looking for other ways to differentiate. It's a good question.
So what committee is this on?
facilities.
Facilities.
Facilities? Who's on that committee?
You know, I
John
was
and
just
Mark.
kinda curious of like.
Huh?
Me, John, and Mark.
You guys are?
Yeah, I was curious how the decision is, like, I know you just went through some of the variables, but, like, I don't know anything about the other two, because I have nothing to compare to, but what, did they offer anything that you loved compared to other that we could take back?
We went through each category,
Yeah.
and Joe explained, each category, and we discussed it, and it got to a point like, Aramark, I don't think they had any even, but there was one district in our area, right?
Ripon
So-
is the closest public school district, and then they have Fox Valley Lutheran as their client. Otherwise, they are not within our region.
And their business primarily, isn't it like, refresh my memory, it's not food service, I mean, when you go onto their
Oh, yeah, it's
website,
like
it's like
the
the
rugs and-
very
Yeah, that's
bottom
what I
of it.
was thinking, isn't
Yeah,
it rugs
so, I
and
mean,
uniforms?
Right, so.
I guess what I was saying is like when we do bids at work, it's like there's certain things that you take back and you're like, oh, I wonder if they also do this, and then you mention it to them. Not proprietary information, but in general, is there anything else? Like, I didn't know if anything stood out from you, because John, you're disgruntled, that you
Well-
loved about the other ones?
Right, and like,
For me,
I guess
there
I'm
was
thrown off by
nothing.
that.
Not for me. What do you think, John? Was there anything that just grabbed you?
The promises that were made when we went with them 5 years ago were financial driven, and we got what we paid for. I mean, we made money, but I don't know that during all that time we provided the best food that we could have or should have to kids. And the difference in money in this contract really is nothing.
Well, that's kind of where I was going
I
with the
mean-
question.
Well, we
Like, what did you
went
want?
from Taher, right, to Chartwell's?
Yes,
And we left-
they bought our business
and
last time around.
We left Taher because, was
They
it?
guaranteed us profitability.
Chartwell's.
That's what happened when we went with Chartwell's.
So we were satisfied with their food? I don't remember, I mean,
That was before you were on the board.
Right, right. So I mean,
Yeah, I was just curious of the difference, like you're going with, I guess I didn't know, John, what you found that Tahoe brought. I'm just trying to learn more.
I can't guarantee what anybody brings, I know that, I don't feel that we got the quality that was promised over the last 5 years. I think that's.
But we made
greatly-
profit on it, you said.
Oh, yeah, we were promised.
So we left Taher because we were promised profit and we didn't make profit, so we left them.
No.
Oh,
no,
we did?
No, it was a profit guarantee that was the reason that we went with Chartwell's at the start of it.
And Taher didn't
And a
have a
promise- and a
profit
promise
guarantee.
of fresher options, higher quality.
So what was the committee's recommendation?
Right, like if, I'm really confused as to why this is at the board right now, if you
No, I
guys
mean,
didn't
I
agree
get it.
on it.
It wasn't unanimous.
Okay,
It wasn't unanimous.
So it's brought to the board for a decision so that we can continue the process to work with Chartwell's and the submittal to DPI for their review to support our next contract. That's why this is the board acknowledgement.
And at this point, we would be open to a motion either way.
Monica said that she was trying to get more fresh options in there, right? With the middle school, is that?
yeah.
I think maybe an easier way to summarize, if you're looking for what does the committee decide, Holly, and I'll speak for Mark, and I know you would share this, he recommended Chartwell's moving forward. There wasn't a absolute reason to switch. John, as he just mentioned, felt like, that wasn't his first choice for the recommendation, which is okay. That's why we're bringing it to the board tonight. With the information that I feel like we have compiled and shared, there's no reason to not choose Chartwell's moving forward. They have done what we have asked. There's always opportunity for meetings and growth and discussions. If we are sitting here next year at this time and the board decides, you know what, it still isn't working the way we thought it was, the board can entertain the RFP process again and pick somebody different.
Okay, so this is an annual process then?
It's usually a 5-year process, but it can be annually because you enter into a contract for a year with up to 4 annual renewals, and typically there's not a change unless something is not going well inside the program. And if that was the case, I think, as you know, as board members, we would share that with you and make a recommendation to do something different, because it's just part of, food service is a big operation for us. We're serving well over 1,000 kids every single day. We wouldn't take less than what we feel is a good recommendation, because nutrition is a big part of our students' daily lives, whether they're eating breakfast, lunch, milk, or having an after-school snack program, or even summer school. We feel like that it is an integral component, and that's why, I feel like with what we shared today, especially with references and our on-site manager, everybody you talk to will say, if you like your on-site manager, they're doing a good job, don't switch.
That's what I was trying to boil this down to.
Yeah.
Yes.
So this,
Trying to understand it.
so if we pass this motion, there will be an opportunity to review the contracts a year from now and see if there has been improvements.
Would we be automatically reviewing it? Would we only be reviewing it?
We
if
wouldn't
brought it up?
automatically be reviewing it unless you ask for that, and you will get updates, because as you've seen, Monica comes to meetings, and she will be coming, during the year again, and it's easy to say, hey, we're not happy with what we heard, let's go to RFP again.
In this school, did we ever do our own food service in the school?
Yes, it's been 20+ years though, because we had Taher for about 20 years, and now Chartwell's for the last 5.
I feel like when we were in school, that's when we did it.
The pizza was good.
That was it.
So, is there a motion on this?
I'll make the motion to approve Chartwell's.
Is there a second?
I will second it. I'll give him a shot.
Further discussion? We'll have a roll call vote.
Yep. Chris Martinson,
I'll do a yes.
Tyler Schweitzer,
Me, yes.
Mandy Wells.
Yes.
Katie Madden, I am a yes. Mark Grossman, gone. Nate Grundy,
Yes.
John Heidemann.
I'm a no.
Okay, we're moved to our next item on the agenda is review of Board of Education Committee. Now, postponement of our annual election has changed this somewhat because under our policy, it's the job of the president to appoint the committees. Typically, we have done that by asking everybody to submit their committee requests, and the appointments would be made by the first meeting in May. Things are changed up. There are some committees that are going to have to meet prior to our school board election. So I guess I'm open to ideas on how we fill that. Do we carry over the last year's committees with the exception of
I
Terry's
thought we
presence?
already voted on this.
Officers.
Oh,
No, we-
officers.
we-
Okay,
yeah,
gotcha.
we did not establish committees.
Gotcha.
So the, the suggestion would be, well, there's a few things you could do.
Are there any committee meetings that have to be scheduled before the next?
Probably compensation. And,
Or are you guys done with that?
We don't
did not
have it.
set another date
Yeah.
for compensation at our last
did not,
meeting.
yeah.
Right.
We did ask that, I believe, to say, do we need another?
I didn't think there was anything else to discuss after the last one.
There's no new information, there's really no reason to have a meeting, so we could probably just
Table it?
table it.
Other committees that may need to meet.
Facilities, connections, instructional, policy, and total comp are the five committees that we currently recognize within. Danielle, do you have yours on instructional on the
Yeah,
calendar?
we have it after the 13th, so.
After the 13th?
So it would be fine at the next meeting, because the next meeting will be on the 13th. So we'll be able to talk about what those would be.
The policy committee, we did not set our next meeting date. We were gonna wait until committees are reestablished to move forward, as well as the connections committee.
Yeah.
Daniel, what date do we have for that?
I'll look it
What about CISA 6 meetings? Terry was.
He was our representative that attend that. That's something definitely we'll have to establish, but as far as the high pressing, I
Oh, do you have May
would put that up
14th?
there.
up. Yeah,
Yes, at 7.
yep.
All right, so, sounds like we would be fine with, not having any
Waiting,
committee meetings
yeah.
between now and.
But that would be the day,
The day
7 a.m.
after.
after a meeting.
Yeah.
So suggestion would be to retain the current committee structure minus Terry until we set the,
That was the intent of setting this date, was that we said that would still wrap up the school year for the instructional committee. So the team had said that they wanted to have the end of the year report.
So,
and that's Mark, Howie, and Katie that were part of that.
so
group.
if there are any emergencies that come up that need a committee meeting, we'll retain last year's committee, just minus Terry.
That's fair,
And we'll
yeah.
go ahead.
I don't anticipate any unless, like you said, there'd be something very pressing that would have to come forward, and obviously would work through you, Chris, to see that.
Okay. Any other questions about committees before we move the agenda? Hearing none, pursuant to section 19.851C of Wisconsin statutes, the Board of Education will convene in closed session to discuss the employment and compensation of certified and support staff members over which the board has jurisdiction and exercises responsibility. Is there a motion to go into closed session?
I'll make that motion.
Moved by Holly, seconded by Katie. Roll call vote.
Holly Schweitzer,
Yes.
Randy Rhodes.
Yes.
Katie Batney, yes. Mark Vaughn, Nate Grundy,
Yes.
John Hyder, yes. Chris Martinson.
Yes. We are in closed session as of
6:46.
6:46.